Well,
say 5 nice things about me. Quickly.
Tall, handsome,
tan,
good voice,
funny, charming, selfless.
What else? That's it, I think. We went over 5, but we couldn't get to 10.
Well, no, and it felt like you were going to keep going. I feel like I cut you off.
I don't think I could possibly get to 10.
And an incredible boxer.
Welcome to SmartLess.
SmartLess.
The one thing I will miss about New York is the prepared meals at the grocery store. Because I just right before this, I just finished having sushi with the spicy tuna.
Hamburger.
And then, but I always go there and I get like the spaghetti. Like, don't you guys love that? Like,
we have those out here on the West Coast.
Yeah, we do.
No, but not to walk to. You just walk in, you get like a spaghetti and meatballs, and you just walk back home.
Depends on where your house is.
Spaghetti and meatballs is not sushi. I mean, I'm going to check it out right now.
Yeah,
but
you check that out, Will, while I explain to Sean that if you live near a place that sells prepackaged food, you can walk to get it.
Could you, Sean, you could walk to Larchmont if you wanted to. I'm not divulging
It's kind of far.
Well, I mean,
for a guy who doesn't like walking up a flight of stairs, yes.
Yes.
No, that's not true. He does walk. I will say this about Sean. Oftentimes when I call him, he's walking in his neighborhood.
I love to walk.
He does.
Don't you love to walk?
By the way, Amanda says she saw you and Alessandra knocking down the big hill over here the other day. That's so adorable.
Yeah, Will likes a good walk.
In the afternoon, I can just see you sort of pushing your laptop aside and saying, reach for the intercom there in the mansion, and you say, "Hon, what room you in? Are you up for a walk?" And then you guys...
You put your ankle weights on?
You zip into your bag, right? Your sweat bag?
I put my sweat bag on, and I put my body weights on. And I start climbing that hill. And you know what? The first time I really did that hill was with you, JB, during the pandemic. And JK. And I remember the first time we did it, and I was like, oh my God. And you were so good. I was like, fuck, this is so hard. And now I've done it, every time.
I know. And Will, you live on a hill.
Yeah, living on a hill. And so I do.
You tried biking? I biked up that once.
No, you did not.
That was a whole different thing.
That is brutal. I've seen a couple guys do it, and they're barely going forward as they go up.
Yes, exactly. God bless a 10-speed.
But I've seen JB. I've seen you over the years a few times on that hill, and you usually give me like a scornful look or whatever, like it's sort of a shitty ugh. But Amanda,
I just honk and swerve near you and try to scare you.
Which is in the family, because Amanda yesterday, all of a sudden this like Tesla comes in and the swerving. I'm like, what the fuck? And then it's Amanda waving. Brightly. At least she's waving brightly.
With the Drake just pouring out her window.
I just talked to her yesterday.
Yeah. End of story?
Hour though, 3 hours.
Yeah. How's your ears?
I love talking to Amanda. She said she's going to throw me a party when I come home.
We goddamn right we are.
Can I go?
I'm like, you assholes better throw me a party.
Are you kidding?
It's soon, isn't it? Isn't it like a week now?
JB, you're looking real stripy today. Are you getting
I'm back
up?
on the golf course today.
You are?
Yeah, I like the shirt, Jay.
It's been a while. I got this shirt while I was visiting with Will out there east.
Yeah.
I'm going out there to one of Burbank's finest courses today.
Oh.
And I'm going to enjoy myself.
What a life. What a life.
I feel like I have something more to say, but maybe I'll think of it while we're talking to our really high-level guest here, guys.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
We've bored this person.
Huh?
We've bored this person now.
Sorry, guest.
Their day-to-day, or D-to-D.
And it is not the first time he's been exposed to our pain. He's been here before, and I don't want to spoil anything. But it was during a time very, very early on. We didn't really know what we were doing. Things were very, very topical in our interview, so it didn't age well. And there's a few-week delay before we put these on, and COVID was... So we ended up not even airing the episode, but he's back.
Oh, no.
We've got a jack of all trades and a master of all. Huh?
Right.
His books have been New York Times bestsellers. His columns and newspapers and websites are instant must-reads. His television appearances are appointment TV, and his overall opinions on all things culture, whether it be entertainment, politics, sports, are unapologetically honest and singular. He has a degree in political science and a master's in print journalism. We three dummies admire him for his already massive success in something we're just trying to figure out, but we love him for his profound work on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Please welcome Boston's own William John Simmons III. Bill?
Oh, But get out of town.
Please.
Bill Simmons.
Wait a minute. What?
Sean still doesn't know who I am.
No, no, I love Bill Simmons. Wait, what happened to the show?
We never aired it
We never
because
aired
what
it.
we
Was
talked
too-
about was like what was happening that week. And
Oh, really?
yeah, it was just, it didn't.
Yeah, I did one of the first test shows.
Yeah.
It wasn't a test, but it was.
wasn't a
You
test.
were one of our big shots right up front there,
Oh.
along with Dak Shepard.
Wow.
Oh, so you just squashed it. Oh, I should feel much worse about this.
No,
it's not even
didn't air
aired.
because it was too. Jason's right. It was too topical. It was too like exactly. It was like what was going on. It was like May.
You're not alone. There were, I think,
there were a
Tapper.
few.
Same thing
Yeah.
happened with Jake Tapper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought you guys didn't like me, and then like
Well, there
then
was
maybe I
that.
said something about Ozark
You know,
back
we
in
tr-
like
yeah,
in
we tried
2020.
to edit it and make it entertaining.
Bill,
we just couldn't make it work.
We love you and revere you in spite of your allegiance to certain teams. Put it that
Oh,
way.
here-
Certain teams, like you mean every Boston team?
No, not every Boston team.
Where's your beef? What don't you like about
Just
his
I'm not
allegiance?
gonna. I don't want to get into a back and forth with Bill Simmons. He'll crush me. Are you kidding? I don't.
he doesn't
have
like the
firepower.
Bruins.
I don't have the firepower.
I do like
The
the
only
Bruins.
team you have a passion for are the Maple Leafs. Well, you didn't for a while, right?
Well,
The
I was
Bruins-
mad. We had a cheap owner, and he cost us a Stanley Cup, and I was in my 20s and spiteful, and I got mad.
Right, but now you're back.
Now I'm in a better spot.
You're back with the Bears.
The Bears, the Bruins. Yeah, they do have the Bear logo.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
that's
I thought you meant the Hershey Bears. I thought you meant he became a Hershey Bears fan of the AHL.
Well, we're taping this right now, and Mookie Betts is going back to Fenway Park, which was the most traumatic Red Sox thing that's happened
it's going to
in
be
the
a tough.
last 30 years. Yeah, he was our best guy.
you
yeah.
guys are both huge baseball fans.
Yeah.
And did you guys, when Mookie Betts came to the Dodgers, did you guys fire some texts back and forth?
No, I told him. I told all my Dodger fans, I was like, you guys won the lottery. This guy's amazing. This is the biggest mistake the Red Sox have made in my lifetime. I couldn't get too mad because we won 4 World Series, and I had said before we won the first World Series that I'd probably sell my soul to win 1 World Series.
Yeah.
So we won 4.
Wait. I thought it was only 2. When was there?
So you
4?
did sell your soul. I just want to
No,
confirm.
we won 4. Yeah, I do think I might be going to hell. I think I might have said that drunkenly one night that I would sell my soul. So it's hard to complain too much, but you know, we had this awesome guy who was great in the community, and you know, he's so much fun to watch, and they just trade him.
How far were the Red Sox from making that deal? Did they have an opportunity to match what the Dodgers offered them?
They got super smart and analytical about baseball players as they hit their 30s, how their production declines, and you're basically
boy.
paying for past performance, which is true with like the sluggers.
Right.
But like the Sean Hayes kind of wiry athletic types
Oh, boy,
age
that
pretty
hurts.
nicely into their 30s.
Wiry.
Yeah,
You know,
does. Look
I
at
know
him.
Sean is still playing squash and doing whatever he's
Look
doing.
at, I got my things on.
Look at
Got his
his
compression wrap on his elbow.
from
It's not a good look.
hammering the piano every night. Bill, I wanted to ask you what I mean. You are sort of a jack of all trades, as Jason said, and you opine on lots of different things. But sports
Yeah.
is sort of the lead. That was the sort of the cutting edge of that got you into this world. What was it about you, like as a kid? Were you like, this is going to be my milieu? Like, I'm just a sports guy. I love sports so much, and I just it's got to be my life. What was the sort of the genesis of you as the ultimate sports guy?
Well, it also might have been not having a life. You know, I was an
Oh.
only child, and I absolutely love sports. I was all into it, and all the Boston teams. My dad had Celtics season tickets. Just kind of
Nice.
threw myself into it. And at some point in college, I had a column in college that, really from the first week I was in college, and I was like, I wonder if I can get paid for this. So it was one of those. Like, I just love sports. I remember everything. I have opinions. I have a sense of humor. Can this be something? But it still took me the entire 90s to get there.
But you early on decided that you were going to make your journalism come from the perspective of the fan as opposed to sort of trying to stay neutral and just kind of report the facts. Was that shaped by your experience as a Boston fan, in that the Celtics were just killing it there in the, what was it?
The 80s when you were
the
growing
late
up.
70s, early
yeah,
80s, right?
We had a
when you
nice
started-
run.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the Sox were giving you a lot of pain.
Yes.
So did that kind of shape? Well, that's more of like I'm a very passionate fan by virtue of the local teams, and so let's do that angle.
It was two things. The first one was that the way people wrote about sports back then was very, reportery,
Very dry.
like non-fan stuff, right?
Yeah.
and it just wasn't the way my friends and I talked.
Right.
So I never really liked reading that coverage that much because I was like, do these people even like sports? They just seem like angry old white guys. So it was that. And then the other thing was because I couldn't get in the clubhouses, I was writing like a sports column on the internet. I couldn't get press passes for anything. So I really tripled down on, all right, I'm going to write from the fans' perspective. A couple of the writers that I really liked had done that. Like there was this book the screenwriter William Goldman had written called Wait Till Next Year, where he wrote all of his parts were about New York sports from a fan's perspective. There's Roger Angel and the New Yorker was another one. So I was like, I feel like that's a better lane for this. So I kind of just threw myself into that, and it kind of worked.
What was your first? Well, what was your first sort of moment where you got not validated, but got entree, like where somebody said, "Okay, you can come in, you can get into the locker room, you can get into the press box, you can have access." What was that moment?
Yeah, how do you get into the locker room?
Yeah, that was so ESPN got my column in 2001. And I had a little more juice at that point to go to stuff. But at that point, I was like, you know what? Like having some distance from this and writing from the fan side is actually better for me because I was weaving pop culture and all my stuff. And I was like, I actually think like this is a better lane. So for really all the 2000s, I tried to stay away from being kind of too embedded with athletes and getting in there and just kind of being detached. And then in the 2010s, I realized because I had so much, I don't know, such a high profile at that point, I could talk to just about whoever I wanted. And I was like, you know what? Now that I'm hitting my 40s, there's stuff to learn from some of these guys, from some of these coaches. And I really kind of threw myself into just kind of learning more from people who played and coached.
Yeah, there was that big transition. You talk about you becoming a high profile. So, listener, for those of you that aren't, sports junkies like me and Sean Hayes, Bill exploded onto ESPN. He started a podcast, Dynasty, with Grantland and then The Ringer. And
my podcast was 07, Sean.
It's amazing.
How about that? It was like me and Mark Maron and like two other dudes.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
I know who you are. I know you've been around. I know what you do.
So tell us about that. That transition was not gradual. It was pretty not overnight. I don't mean to diminish it or belittle it at all. I don't mean that at all. It was very deserved what happened. Maybe it was just overdue. But were you comfortable in that transition? Not only what it did for you publicly and being sort of famous and recognizable.
Yeah, that kind of maturing
from ESPN to the next chapter. Is that what you mean?
Well, being on air, like all of a sudden you were. I remember seeing you on
the finals
on TV,
yeah.
And I was like. I was like, who is this guy? And I was like, that's what Bill Simmons looks like. And listening to you talk and like, it was just this great new personality.
I remember how disappointed you were at how handsome he was.
Jesus, he's handsome too.
But there really was definitely like an unapologetic, sorry to use a word again. You didn't really make much of an effort to be some like zippy on-air personality. Like you were just like, look, I'm just a guy and I got an opinion and it's backed with knowledge and facts and here we go. It was
you were fine with just
refreshing.
being a plain regular guy, which we really admire.
Yeah, we're just small.
Yeah, it was actually fun to do those shows because I would just kind of call it like it is.
Yeah.
And I think people were surprised initially because it was very like
now Barkley's doing a good job.
Studio shows were very Barkley could do it because he was a Hall of Famer. But like when the media guys usually came on, they were way more careful. I went going backwards, like probably 06. I made a decision like every single year I want to try to add something and take a swing at something. I don't want to be in the same spot at the end of the next year that I'm in right now. So what can that be? So like in 07, that was when I started 30 for 30. I sent the memo. We created
I forgot about
me and
that
Connor's show.
Yeah.
That was when I started writing my basketball book, and that was when I started doing my podcast. And then the next year after that, it was like, all right, how can I keep going? How can I keep going? And that led to Grantland in 2011, and then just TV in 2012, and it was just each year, what can I do? I don't want to be in the same spot.
What I love about it, sorry, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, is that you say you do all these things and you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And it feels like you were at ESPN, then you were at HBO, I think, for a minute.
Yeah.
And it's almost like those places just couldn't contain you. Like you ended up, you're like, well, fuck it. I don't need them. I'll just create my own network. I'll create my own vessel because then I don't have to answer to all that. Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah, I realized I got suspended in 2014
That's fun.
from ESPN for
That was for dealing all that heroin, right? I mean,
yeah,
they've got to
you
fire
know,
you
it turned
for
out
that.
the H was just not.
Yeah, it
cut.
just
They
wasn't
were
legal
cool
yet.
with it. I know.
Yeah.
But they're
Wait,
so
what
old
did you get
school.
suspended for?
I said some stuff about the NFL commissioner, who was their biggest partner, and they got upset. And
Wow.
when I got suspended, something weird happened. All these people reached out like, "Hey, when you branch off, I'd love to invest, or I'd love to." And I was like, "Wait, what's going on?"
Wow.
And that really made me start thinking about it pretty seriously. Like, okay, if I left, could I create something? I had some people at Grantland that I really liked working with, and just over the course of 2015, it was like, all right, what if could we recreate Grantland as our own thing that we own? We don't have to answer to anybody. Could we really triple down on podcasts? Because we were convinced, you know, ESPN didn't care about podcasts at all. And we were convinced, like, we can probably pay for everything through the podcast revenue. And I never ended up taking money from investors because
No way.
kind of felt like we could pay for everything through my podcast, and which is what happened.
Amazing.
That's a risky proposition, a little bit I mean, not nerve wracking, but it's a leap, right?
Yeah, I remember explaining it to my wife, and she's like, I trust you, but I could see like this glimmer in her eye, like, should I go on Raya now or like wait for 6 months?
Raya.
Well, before you give us all a layman's lesson on podcasting and where it's kind of going and all that, talk a little bit about where this moxie came from to sort of double down, triple down on yourself and to be really proactive in an entrepreneurial way, because you know, dudes that are super big sports fans that like write about it and stuff aren't famous for being business titans, to put it kindly. So where does all that come from? I mean, you're very well educated. You come from, I think your dad was a teacher and your mom was a
superintendent.
Yeah. So I mean, you were raised by adults and you are one. So is that simply it, or do you just have an innate business acumen?
You guys are probably going to like this answer. The more I got embedded at ESPN, you start looking around and you're like,
wait, I can do this.
That guy's kind of terrible. This guy's terrible. How did this guy get this job where he decides stuff? This lady's awful. And you just start going, wait a second, I feel like I'm smarter than a lot of these people.
Yeah. It turns out nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah, but even if it's not that, usually I find if you just get in the door in any sort of industry, sort of the mystery of it that you build up in your mind just kind of melts away, and that's half the battle.
You think everybody is awesome and all-knowing, and they're just not.
They're not.
Or that they've got this like well of like secret knowledge that you'll never have access to.
Yeah.
That they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most of the people just they got promoted a couple times, and they kind of can't believe they got to where they got. Like when we did 30 for 30, and people loved it, the first volume.
Is that like 80 for Brady?
No.
It's well, they were.
It's a sports documentary series. So we created it, and we finished it, and the person who was in charge of ESPN Films, who it changed hands a couple times, and by the time we finished 30 for 30, people loved it. And they were like, all right, so 30 for 30 is done. We're going to call documentaries now ESPN Films and do it that way. And they didn't want to do a second volume. And we were like, we just created a brand. That's like the hardest thing you could possibly do. So they released like 4 more documentaries, not called 30 for 30s. They're called ESPN Films Presents. And everybody was like, did you see the new 30 for 30?
Right.
And we're just sending emails to people. And we're like, we did it. Like, we did the impossible. We created a brand. Just let's do another volume of 30 for 30. We had to convince them for like 9 months. And now the thing's still on 14 years later.
It's amazing. That's so cool.
Wow.
It was so stupid. I can't tell. I would go, I don't get as mad as I did back in the day, but like in the late, I would just lose my mind. I would send these 2,000-word emails, and I thought it was normal because I worked for Kimmel for 18 months. And you guys know Kimmel. Kimmel's a
can
lunatic.
double-click
Like he's
him.
just Kimmel is like, he will whip off a 700-word email in 3 seconds as he's playing a
skewers
video
you.
game and doing
Yeah.
9 other things.
Yeah.
So I thought,
that's
well,
like me.
Jimmy's like that too. That's normal. And then you realize, like, oh, Jimmy's also a lunatic. So we're both lunatics.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
you
very
guys-
similar.
Yeah, you guys have. Sean is, by the way. Sean will answer an email before the person has hit send.
He's telepathically answering it.
And I write Sean a couple times. I've been like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like we're on some sort of like email chain or business thing, and I'll be like, I'm sorry that I'm not answering yet, but I need a minute to think about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Sean's already answered. But you know, it's funny you say that. It makes sense that, and I know you and Kimball are friends. And I know you worked with him for a little bit. It does totally make sense that you guys both have this kind of. You're very confident, and you're both opinionated, but confident in your opinion and confident about being right. And generally, I bet you're both right most of the time. And
Yeah, they don't pop off on shit they're wrong about.
No.
you know?
And
Wait,
yeah.
hold on. Let's be clear. Kimmel is way worse than I am. He's not confident. He is super stubborn.
Yes.
And
So
will just fight to the
but-
death until he just breaks you down and you admit he's right, even though you don't think he's right.
But he's smart enough not to dig in on things that he's not smart about. you
He'll
know?
just back off and it'll be like
Yeah.
it never happened.
Yeah.
No, he's like one of the most frustrating people to argue with because it could be like we could argue with Celtics. He's like, no, Larry Bird only won 2 MVPs. And I'm like, do I have to get like the basketball encyclopedia? Like he definitely won 3. No, it was 2. And then it was like, no, here it is. It's 3. It's like, I told you it was 3.
And we will be right back.
Thank you to Mudwater for supporting the show. As you might know, we've been drinking Mudwater. It's a coffee alternative with 4 functional mushrooms and with only a fraction of caffeine as a cup of coffee. You get energy without the jitters or crash of coffee, right? That's why I love it. I love it because it tastes great. I actually love it. I put a little honey in it in the morning, and it comes in the powder form. You put it in milk, and I add a little honey in there. It's really, really great. And they sent me this frother when you stick it in it to stir it. It's kind of like, those milkshake frothers, when you were a kid and in the milkshake machines, but you get your own and it spins it and it's really cool. It mixes it really, really well. And it tastes like cacao and chai had a baby. Each ingredient was added for a purpose. Cacao and chai for a hint of caffeine and hot chocolate-like flavor, lion's mane to support focus, cordyceps to help support physical performance, and both chaga and reishi to support your immune system. Seriously, guys, this stuff is tasty. Please go get some. So to get your free frother and free samples of coconut creamer and sweetener, go to mudwater.com/smartless. On that link, you'll get all of the samples and frother for free. So go to mudwtr.com/smartless for your free frother. That's mudwtr.com/smartless. SmartLess is sponsored by BetterHelp. So, there was a time in my life when I knew it was good for me, but my brain was getting in the way. Like, when I was trying to fall asleep at night, but my mind keeps racing and racing and racing. And of course, when I wake up in the morning, either or in the middle of the night, just to go to the bathroom, my mind starts racing and racing and racing again. Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way, like me? It takes a lot to calm it down. And what I find helps is therapy. Like, what you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't do it. So what I do to stop the kind of racing thoughts is I utilize therapy because it always helps me. Therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I always feel better after therapy. Just had it yesterday. That's why I'm feeling great and I'm talking in a high voice. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/smartless today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/smartless. SmartLess is sponsored by ADT. ADT self-setup features everything from motion sensors to Google Nest cams with no long-term contracts. How about that? Easily install the ADT self-setup security system at your convenience. No heavy-duty tools are needed, and if you need help, ADT can provide virtual assistance along the way. ADT self-setup grows, moves, and adapts as your needs change. You can add more products at any time, and your system easily moves wherever life takes you. It also features Nest cams that can tell the difference between a person, an animal, a vehicle, or with the Nest doorbell, even a package. Plus, when every second counts, you can trust ADT's 24/7 professional monitoring. You can view video of an alarm event and verify or cancel an alarm with just a tap. When the most trusted name in home security adds the intelligence of Google, you've got a home with no worries. Go to ADT.com today or call 1-800-ADT-ASAP. Google, Nest Cam, Nest Doorbell, and Nest Aware are trademarks of Google LLC. And now back to the show.
So how did podcasting hit your radar earlier than anybody else? Not just listeners, but podcast creators. And what was it? Who whispered in your ear and you got ahead of it and carved away and made it possible for, idiots like us and Dax and
I like that I made it possible for your podcast to succeed.
Well,
this is good.
It became a medium. It wasn't a medium before you and Mark Maron.
Jason, our lawyers just emailed me and said, take that back.
we cut that out later.
No, when I started it, it was just because I saw there was this interview link on ESPN.com with the interview with the Celtics GM. And I clicked on it and it was like, podcast. It's interview with Danny Ainge. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I emailed them and I'm like, can I have one of these? And they were like, okay. And they mailed me this equipment. So I did my first one with an NBA writer named Mark Stein. And the second one was with Corolla. And Corolla came over because I only had one jack in the phone. So he came over and we realized we couldn't do it in the same room. And he was wandering around my driveway on the phone doing the podcast with me. So it was like the early days were like crazy rocky. And I was like, these are really fun. I used to have my friends on. And my whole goal was like to emulate Mike and the Mad Dog because I love Mike and the Mad Dog in New York. Yeah. And it was like these guys, I love Mike and the Mad Dog when they would be talking about like the Oscars. Yeah. Not like the Rangers would be like, all right, who do you have for best acted dog? And they would like be going, I'd be like, this is amazing. What is this? So I would have my friends on and just like people that I thought I would have good chemistry with. And then around 2009, I'd had it for about 2 years. And I remember Seth Meyers he emailed me about it. And he was like, Jacko was, my buddy Jacko was like, Jacko was feeling it today. Like, it was so funny. And I'm like, you listened? Like, I had no idea people were listening because they didn't tell me the numbers. And I was like, you want to come on? So in 2009, I started just having these celebrities on. And I was like the first podcast for, I would say like 50 celebrities. And all of them thought it was amazing. It was like a first date with somebody who were like, that was amazing. And now it's like every celebrity's been on 50 podcasts? There's nothing special about it anymore. But it was really fun to grab people. So by like 2009, 2010, people were mentioning it to me on the street. They were mentioning my column, but then some people were like, hey man, love the podcast. I was like, oh. And it just felt like it was building.
It's also a great way for celebrities to be, to have an extended conversation with an interviewer or journalist or whatever, and not run the risk of having a headline cherry picked out of there for some sort of sensational abuse.
Like a gotcha thing,
it's all verbatim. And
I remember talking to you about it, Jason, because you were like, we were talking about how frustrating the talk show circuit is.
Yeah, especially
where
on
you
Kimmel.
come out and you do like. Well, Kimmel's
a grind.
But you do like, you're on a talk show for 10 minutes, right? And they do the pre-interview and you come out and you hit your 3 things and you have a little back and forth. And I think for the celebrities, the podcast was just such a more fun format because it was like, this is who I really am. You're hanging out.
For sure.
So that was a big win for everything.
Bill, tell me, sorry, just to go back again. So your parents were teachers. What did they think? What did you say to them when you graduated college? You're like, all right, I'm just going to go into this sports thing. Were they like, great? Were they expecting you to become a teacher? Did they want you to become a lawyer?
No, I think it was like 50-50 for them. I was going to be able to have a steady job. I don't think.
Really?
I was like waking
but you've
up at
just
12
gotten
o'clock.
a master's degree in print
Well, that
journalism.
was the thing.
So,
I got a my senior year, my dad was like, hey, what are you going to do next year? I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you maybe keep going on the sports or thing. You're right. And I just like at the last minute applied to 3 journalism schools and got into a couple.
So he encouraged you.
Yeah, it was more like a, what are you doing next year? And just kind of staring vacantly back with no answer. But then I went to journalism school and it didn't work out right away. Like I worked at the Boston Herald for 3 years and did grunt work and Chinese food orders and covered high school sports. And And by 96, I was out. I was bartending.
So did you play sports as a kid, and then did you not want to go into professional sports, like playing them?
I was like high school level best. Yeah.
In what
I played
sport?
basketball.
Yeah, what was your sport?
Basketball.
Basketball is my favorite. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I still played tennis. I had to retire from basketball 10 years ago because we're all old people.
Oh, did you roll an ankle too many times?
Yeah.
I remember speaking to an orthopedic surgeon once in New York, and she was just basically like, yeah, like 9 out of 10 injuries of dudes over 30 are from basketball.
Yeah.
It's and now it's like pickleball and basketball.
Yeah, pickleball.
Yeah, I played basketball when I was a kid, and I was like, we'd run down to one end of the court, and I'd be like, and then they'd get the ball, the rebound, and I'm like, wait,
We got to go all the way back.
we got to go all the way back to the other side. I don't understand. And can't we just play half the court? I didn't understand it. It was too much for me.
So basketball was your main sport. You played baseball too, I imagine, a little bit when you were a kid.
I played everything until high school. Just played basketball. I love basketball the most though because we had the season tickets. We were like front and center for the whole Larry Bird era. So I just understood it the most.
Did you grow up in Boston, or did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in Brookline, and then
you did?
my parents got divorced, which is why I have a sense of humor.
Right, sure.
And,
Exactly.
My mom moved to Connecticut, and eventually I moved to live with my mom for high school.
Okay.
And
they got divorced like at a tough time for you too. 13, I think it was.
no, I was 9.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, I had
goddamn Wikipedia.
The Red Sox, don't read Wikipedia. The Red Sox lost to the Yankees in the 1978 playoff game, which was the most traumatic sports loss ever. Bruins lost to the Canadians, and my parents got separated all in the span of 6 months. So, and I had glasses.
Wow.
It was tough.
Wait, was that 78? Did you say 78?
78 and early
Yeah,
79.
because the Leafs lost. They were swept by the Canadians before that.
For the Canadians, they just beat
So
us.
you were both on the edge of a few buildings that year, huh?
It was tough. Well, he's had the Leafs thing is
It's so tough.
one of the most traumatic professional sports relationships that anyone has.
Oh,
There's just nothing good happens with
But
the Maple
Brendan
Leafs.
Shanahan's going to bring it all
He is.
back, right,
Shanny
Willie?
is the man. Shanny is our
I
man.
love that
He's the
guy.
best. He's the best dude. I actually just played golf with Shanny and Mike from Mike and the Mad Dog a couple weeks ago.
wow.
Yeah. it
Will,
was a-
did you ever get tempted by the Kings, just like doing a full hockey divorce and just second wife with the Kings?
I couldn't. I mean, I go to Kings games when I'm here, and I'll, sometimes with the kids and stuff, just for fun. But and I'm just such a huge hockey fan. But the Leafs are just my team. They're just it for me, and they always have been. And it's
Isn't that hilarious that people will divorce human beings but not their teams? Like if Will was like, I'm now a Kings fan, we'd be like, that's horrible. You broke up with the Maple Leafs? That's the worst thing I ever heard.
You know what?
If it's a relationship, it's fine.
You know what's funny? So when I was with Shanny a couple weeks ago, he goes, he's like, I think he heard it on the podcast or somewhere. He goes, so I heard you say, because I've become like in the last 10, 12 years, like a massive soccer fan, and I'm a big Liverpool supporter through my friend. And I just,
Bill loves Tottenham. Get him.
Are you a Tottenham fan?
It lasted 3 years until my kids started playing sports every Saturday, and that
Right,
was
so
it for
it's
me in the
tough.
Premier
It's
League.
tough.
Yeah, it was too hard.
But so I'm up at 4:30 in the morning watching games and stuff, and I'll watch Bundesliga, I'll watch La Liga, I'll watch anything, Champions League, forget it.
Getting me so hot.
So I start watching it,
So erotic.
and I
4:30,
guess
huh?
I'd sort of said offhand that like
Fucking
it's
dork.
that watching Liverpool and watching soccer has become almost taken over hockey. And he looked at me with such disappointment. He's like, "Is that true? Is that true that you love?" And I go, hey, first of all, relax.
Yeah.
Settle
down.
Settle down. But I do. It has helped to kind of mitigate my frustration or disappointment by watching that because I'm so invested in the Leafs. I live and die by so I've gotten into, and football has been a really great, soccer has become a really great sort of antidote to that, and so I can have some highs.
Better attention span sport too. It's 2 hours. There's a
It's
halftime.
fantastic. It's
just
perfect.
flies through and you're done.
It's perfect. And once I got into it and understanding who the people were and what the stories were behind it is super interesting. And Champions League's interesting. And I'll watch virtually any sport, which makes me like I ended up watching, the Ashes, the cricket. I'll watch 2020 cricket, T20. Like I'll watch, and I think
Cornhole?
like, is there anything I won't watch that? It's not a sport. Will you watch? Is there any sport you won't watch?
Cornhole's
Like,
not a sport?
well,
No.
okay, it's a
No,
game.
It's not. It's a game. A
But
great
will you? Is there any?
So is golf a sport then?
game. Game.
Oh.
Baseball's a game, not a sport.
Yeah, I guess golf's a game, but it's
interesting.
but the top guys are athletes.
True.
Yeah, but
So-
here,
Have
so
you seen the bodies on the Red Sox?
No,
It's a real
I'm saying golf.
softball
I'm saying
team.
golf.
Let's-
I'm saying
they're-
golf. Is there a sport you won't watch? Sorry, that was my big long lead. Is there?
Is there a sport I won't watch?
That you don't enjoy
I don't
watching?
get auto racing, and like there's this F1 resurgence, and I gave it a kick drive, and I
I
just
don't get driving
it's
around
just
in a
cars
circle.
just going in laps.
I don't
get
either.
it.
Well, the road courses I get, but circles,
Bill,
no.
come to Formula One with me. You'll get it. Come with
No,
me to Formula.
listen. You're the 100th person who's like, no, you'll get it. You just, but
Jason got me into
It's
it.
starting to feel like Scientology a little bit. We're like, you don't understand. You've got to meet Miscavige. You'll get it when you meet him. Just have brunch with him. It's like, I don't know. It doesn't take. I don't know if I love F1.
That's hysterical. So wait, so this is a perfect opportunity. And this is going to be a long question, so just hang in there. Because I was like, should I ask it? Should I not ask it?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask
Guys,
it
I'm
to
going to go make a sandwich.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna pee.
I've heard your long question, Sean. I'm excited.
They're not okay. So it's to the three of you guys.
Uh-oh.
So, and this is a perfect opportunity to ask this. And I wasn't going to ask it, but here we go.
It's already too long.
No, hang on.
All the qualifiers.
No, so
He's a big qualifier guy with his questions.
So, what is the psychology behind loving sports so much? Okay, so wait. So, like, in movies, theater, TV, whatever it is, you're watching a story, you're emotionally invested, you're watching the beginning, middle, and end of something. In sports, I get it. There is a beginning and end because who's going to win and then they win. Okay, sure. But what is the psychology about loving it? So, like, what are you rooting for other than a team that you don't
I'll
have
go
any
first.
personal connection to?
Yeah, you
I'll go first.
Jason.
Jason, go
Yeah,
first.
for me, it's just simply, and it's heightened by the Olympics because it's only every 4 years. It's the televised live moment of somebody putting everything they've got on the line, and it's a binary result of success or failure.
Mhm.
And I get to see this person reach for excellence, and let's see what the best they can do is going to yield.
Yeah.
And that's a really exciting thing to me, and it's unwritten.
Yeah.
I get that. I would say for me, it's not dissimilar. And as I explained, my appreciation of soccer came from understanding the stories and the people behind it.
Yeah, you told me that, Will.
So once I can get into, like, this guy came over here, and for me, it's not necessarily binary because there is victory sometimes in people in failure when they don't
Right,
actually get
true.
it, but they try really hard. And I like that.
Yeah,
part of it.
but the stories, like you told me that a long time ago. You're like, Sean, just try to watch the stories of the people. So I'm watching. I'm like, well, this is a Dateline episode. Like I could
Right.
just watch. I could learn about these people without watching them kick a ball around for 2 hours.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah.
But then there is a moment, there is an actual venue for them to go and try to do that. You see the story behind it. So, like, for instance, if you watch like one of these great soccer documentaries, and you see the importance of the team to the town and to the fans, and you see, and then you see these players and these guys in their town and what it means, and then the players who come in and they're trying to do it, and they're trying to do it not just to win, but they understand the cultural impact that they have. They feel it, they know it, and watching them go through that is super compelling.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
get it.
To me.
Also, but on the other side, I went to a Dodgers game with Jason a couple years ago, and we're sitting there, and I was like, I kind of get it. I get like the atmosphere. It's like watching This Old House on a Sunday. You're like, oh, this is very relaxing.
This is going so well.
You know what I mean? I
You
get
were
it.
almost there.
You know what I mean?
Bill, get him back on track.
But Sean, in the same way that, like, for me, I can't get into musicals.
Right.
And
Because
so
why are people singing?
and I'm like, what? And
But
I
if you
can't
learned
get it.
about
I
them,
understand
if you kind of understood kind of what goes into it all, then you perhaps.
I do. Well, I do in the sense that it is sort of adjacent to what I do as a profession, and yet I still can't. It's just not for me. It doesn't speak to me, and for whatever reason, sports does in that way. And Bill, you probably have a much more
I get it.
concise answer.
I just think it's almost like a DNA thing. It hits you. It's got to hit you before like age 6.
Yeah.
And I see it with a couple of my friends' kids. I have like my friend Nathan's kid, just like I could tell when he was 6, I was like, oh, he's going to be one of those guys. He's going to be really into it. And now he is. He's like 14 and he's one of those guys.
Yeah, like I was, obviously, I'm from Chicago when the Cubs won finally, 4, 5, 6 years ago. I don't remember when that was.
Yeah.
I was crying because I was like, oh my God, they haven't won in
meant so
like
much to the city.
200
Yeah.
years. I'm
But
from
that's
Chicago.
it.
Like
Sean,
that was
that's it.
incredible.
Sean, that's it.
all it
Yeah.
is.
and I'm a huge football fan. I just need a reason to watch. Like I need a bet or something.
When I was growing up in Boston in the 70s, but the cold weather cities, it's pretty miserable for like 4 or 5 months. And Canada has this too. I know Will knows. But, the sports teams take this outsized importance of just like the kind of however the teams are doing kind of sets the mood of the city.
Yeah.
And, when Bird showed up for the Celtics in 1979, and we realized like pretty quickly, like, this is one of the most special athletes in any sport, and we get to go on this ride with him for the next 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
That's when it goes to a whole other level. Like Cleveland had that with LeBron, and the Lakers had that with Kobe, and you just kind of hit the lottery when it happens, and that's going to make everyone care more.
Bill, I remember distinctly thinking this at the time, and Sean, again, this kind of goes to the way it makes you feel. I remember when Tiger, starting in sort of 99 through 2008, really up to the 2008 U.S. Open, in that time, he did something that was so spectacular, and I remember thinking, there were people who didn't like him, I remember thinking, I hope we all appreciate how incredible it is what this guy is doing. It was so...
And that we're alive during it.
And we're alive, and we get to watch it in real time.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool.
I thought that way about Jason with Ozark. It was the same thing.
There you
I
go.
agree.
Thank you
Oh
for
my
bringing
God,
that
I
background.
can't believe I'm a member of this species.
I know we get to watch with the slow blink with
Take your
McConaughey,
time,
with
Bill.
the slow blink that McConaughey pointed out. Do you know McConaughey pointed out that Jason's got the best slow blink of all?
He's a slow blink Hall of Famer.
To be honest, I'm not sure what that compliment was, but I took it. I loved it.
I have thought about it every moment since he said that.
I looked at myself in the mirror yesterday, and I was like, I tried to do a slow blink, and I realized, wait, I can't see what I'm doing. So I'm not sure what he's talking about.
That was good. That was good.
Hey, Bill, I don't mean to back you into anything controversial, so feel free to pull the ripcord if it is. But online sports betting that is now sort of really all over the place on television and online and whatnot. How do you feel about? Are you worried about your average sports viewer, especially because, like, when you start talking about the 6-year-old, pretty soon he's going to have a phone and he's going to have like an allowance every week, and he's going to be able to make little bets prompted by the on-air announcers saying, "Hey, listen, if you're thinking this might be a field goal versus a touchdown, you can bet right now." Like, people are going to get hurt. And I'm wondering how you feel about that being in the space right now.
Well, the way the apps are set up, it's impossible for any non-adult to just start a gambling account. Like my son is a sophomore in high school. He can't gamble because he's not allowed. So they have a lot of checks and balances with that. I just think this is where it's been going really for the last 20 years. Like I remember when my first couple years at ESPN.com, gambling was like a big part of the way my friends and I talked about sports, and they wouldn't even let me write a gambling column the first year in 2001 with the spreads.
But the on-air announcers sort of encouraging that. Do you feel like that's on the same side of the line or not?
I don't know if they're encouraging it as much as it's part of the dialogue of sports now to put.
But they're promoting it, and I think the network is as a participant in that action. I could be wrong with that.
Well, ESPN just did a deal, ESPN Bet, they're calling it. I mean, I think they all kind of see where it's going.
Are they doing that with Penn?
Yeah,
But Bill, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. The NFL has, in all sports, but certainly the NFL always posted the odds in the newspaper for as long as it was always about that, right?
Always.
From day one.
It's just more overt than it used to be.
Right.
But it would like teams will get fined if they didn't report injuries. Why are they getting fined? Because it affected the spreads.
Then how does it? Can you reconcile it with the position that that baseball took against Pete Rose gambling on baseball, and now they're actually a partner of gambling with baseball?
No, but you can't, because the Pete Rose thing, he was betting on his own team.
Right.
And he was managing that team.
So he could affect the outcome potentially.
Yeah, they've been cracking down on, they don't want the players to gamble on anything, right?
Yeah.
And there's been, especially in football, there's been a few guys that got nailed. But if you go back to the history of the sports, like there's been gambling scandals in every era.
But there was a ref in basketball that just did it, right?
There's been.
But college basketball in the 50s, there was that huge scandal, right? Of point shaving way back when.
Yeah.
Like it was
and it almost killed college basketball.
Yeah.
What's weird is there's so much attention on it now. It would be really hard to fix anything. Anytime something's out of whack, everybody, all the casinos, everybody
Yeah.
kind of knows. So they get caught like immediately. So, yeah, it's part of the dialogue. I just think it's a generational thing. I think for like our kids' generation, they're just more used to hearing the announcers talk about it
Right.
and the dialogue of these guys were favored by 9. Al Michaels used to be on Sunday Night NBC.
The great Al Michaels.
And he would always be discreetly kind of mentioning the line without mentioning it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I
you know,
remember, yeah.
he'd be like, whoa,
especially
that
when
was
so-
a big field goal for some people out there.
Yeah, exactly. Someone would miss an
Yeah.
extra point inside the last
like,
2 minutes. They
whoa.
go, yeah.
So now it's just kind of out in the open.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm good with it.
We'll be right back.
SmartLess is supported by Soylent. Funny name, but serious nutrition. We could come up with lots of jokes on the name, right? But the internet has been there, done that. So we will just focus on how incredible the product is and the science behind it. You know, I'm into science. Soylent was perfected by food scientists and tested by doctors and researchers over the last 10 years. One bottle has all the balanced nutrients of a complete meal: vitamins, minerals, protein, healthy fat, and only 1 gram of sugar. And it actually tastes great. In fact, it won Product of the Year. This science-backed food hack is the perfect meal for when you don't want to think about food. Soylent is convenient and requires no refrigeration, so you can have breakfast or lunch whenever and wherever you want or need it. I tried the Soylent Creamy Chocolate Meal Replacement Shake. That's really good. Of course, I love anything chocolate. And it was so delicious, and I didn't have to think about meal. I was in and out of my house and my next appointment in no time. Go to Amazon now and get Soylent for 30% off using SmartLess. I repeat, go to Amazon now and get Soylent for 30% off using SmartLess. And back to the show.
How are you as a sports gambler? Do you do it?
Oh my God.
Are you any? You must be good. 'Cause you're
I
knowledgeable.
go up and down. I know you're trying to jinx me right now, but yeah, we I have a long history. I started gambling in 1990 because the Patriots went 1-15, and there were only 2 games on, and we were in college, and you know the Patriots were terrible, and it was like this is the worst football season I've ever had.
And you've made $1 million.
And
betting
we had a
against
buddy
them.
on a buddy on my hall was like, I have a book here. We're like, what? And we start like betting on football, and all of a sudden I had all these favorite teams. It wasn't just the Patriots.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a long journey. I've written about it a lot, and I've had a lot of fun with it. But now there's like so much analytics and analysis that go with it. Like Sal and I, Jimmy's cousin Sal, we do a Sunday night podcast on my pod, and we did this over under with win totals last year, and we did great. Like I went like on the win totals, whether a team was going to go over or under. I went 24-7-1. It was the best I've ever done, and I was more excited about that than anything.
Over or under a certain number of wins for the year.
Yeah, so they'll say like the Giants are 7.5, and you're like, are they going to go over or under? And we just like, and we were like so proud of ourselves that we did well. But there's been other years where we're like, oh my God, we're getting annihilated. Does God hate us?
Does that translate to fantasy sports prowess? Are you really good at that?
I was wanted to ask you if you're into fantasy sports.
Oh, I was in the first wave. I was I was in basketball leagues in the 80s, baseball leagues in 1982. Football since 1990.
What's the name of wasn't there a baseball group early on in ESPN? What was it
Yeah,
called?
I wasn't in that, but yeah, it started in the early 80s. There's a bunch of people that have tried to claim they started the first fantasy league, and it's...
No, but this was like, these guys are like the best, supposedly. I forget what it was called, but I wonder if
Well,
you
I'm
were
in the
part of
Kimmel League where we vote everybody out, and Sal has the hammer this year, and I think he's going to vote me out for comedy's sake.
that. Why? Because the trash talk's not good enough?
Well, we show up, and there's 11 owners, and only 10 stay. And at the beginning of the draft, the guy who won the draft the year before votes out one of the 10, one of the other 10.
Ruthless.
And you just have to get up and get the F out. We had John Hamm was in it, and he showed up late because he was filming Mad Men. And we waited. He showed up like a half hour late. Comes in, sorry guys, sorry. Gets a beer, sits down, and then he got voted out. And he just like drank the beer and he left. That's it.
Oh my God!
That's funny.
I'm the commissioner of my baseball league, and it's the worst league in the world because I don't think that there's not one trash talk at all through the entire season.
Yeah, the 90s were so much more fun. Yeah, the 90s people get mad. The draft was like really vicious, and now
And in
everybody's
person.
nicer. Yeah.
I have a question about this stuff. So, what about
You want to focus on the fantasy part of it? Go, Sean.
No, yeah, exactly. No, why? And I think, Jason, I think I may have asked this on another episode of our podcast, so we can cut it if so. But if all this
SmartLess available wherever you get podcasts.
Yes, on SmartLess.
But you can get it early on Wondery without ads.
Didn't realize that.
I read about all of these crazy, unbelievably massive amounts of money thrown around to all these players for all these teams, right?
Yeah.
These contracts that these guys are playing. So if these teams and owners and all these people have literally billions of dollars, it seems like, why wouldn't they just go buy every single top player and create and have that one team if they have all this money?
Bill,
called
you
the
answer.
Yankees,
You'll be
it's
more
called the Red
concise.
Sox, the
No, I
Dodgers.
mean, but there's an actual.
Yeah, the Dodgers kind of tried that.
It's working.
Well, because there are rules. There are rules as to how much you can actually spend in most
there's
sports.
rules over a certain number. You'd then have to start paying a punitive tax on that. But how would
That's
you
right.
explain what's going on with the Yankees and the Red Sox this year with all their payroll? Aren't they the last two in the American League East?
The Yankees thing is great. It's so much.
Aren't the Red Sox cozied up next to them in
The
the
Red
standings?
Sox aren't winning the title, but what's happened to the Yankees is kind of like my World Series this year. It's their fans are so upset. They have George Steinbrenner's loser son Hal runs the team, and it's like the classic. Like the son who had the only reason he is in charge of anything is just because he was related to his dad, which is always the best and funniest scenario in sports.
By the way, it's funniest thing in any arena. I know
It's
this
so
guy.
good.
I love
It's
the
like
idea.
Giuliani's son running his defense.
But like, think if
No,
Hollywood ran this, where like Bob Iger's retiring, his son is now the president of Disney. Like it would never happen. But in
Right.
sports, they just hand the teams off.
I love kids who are born on third and score on a wild pitch. I love that storyline. It's so great. Of like they just have zero talent, and yet they're just because their dad had a ton of dough.
Yeah.
right.
Bill, you know, when we were talking about sport, I wanted to get back to Sean's question, Bill, and hear what you think about this. About it, why can't the owners just go? We were talking about the Red Sox and Yankees, and they do try to do that, and they've had, and you're jumping with glee at how much the Yankees have spent and to no success. Really, what's happening again? I don't want to bring everything back to soccer, but if you look what's happened in the last year in soccer, the Saudis, in fact, the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, which took control of the top 4 or 5 clubs, has now provided enough funds for them to go and poach from all the major European leagues all these top stars and pay them these salaries, Sean. Neymar just signed a $300 million deal for 2 years.
About all of that.
Plus, they paid a release clause of 80 million euros to PSG. They apparently offered Mbappe 750 million euros to play for 1 year.
Yeah, I read
Ronaldo's getting 400 a year. I mean, they're doing that exact thing that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And Bill, what do you think that something like that does to the balance of world sport?
Well, soccer, it's just basically a free market, and they're all maniacs. I think the NBA had a little bit of this issue where they had this luxury tax, and it was punitive, but then you had a team like the Warriors that were saying, well, screw it. You know, we're in San Francisco. We make a shitload of money. We want to win the title every year. And they had like with the tax, they paid like $350 million for last year's team.
Wow.
So in the new collective bargaining agreement, they changed it so that, all right, if you go over this number, not only is there a tax, but now you're going to have your issues with your draft picks, issues with how you fill out your roster. You're not going to be able to do trades as easily.
Oh, really?
And they really made it harder. And now, but what's funny is there's always some new owner. It's always a rich guy. They come in, like obviously a rich guy, they own the team, but like some newer wave rich guy. So the guy who bought Phoenix, this guy, Matt Ishbia, who I actually kind of like, he's a fun character.
Yeah, I kind of like him too.
But he came in and he's just like, they all want to zag, right? They're like, everybody's going this way. I'm going to zag. And he's like, we don't care about draft picks. We're going to pay for Kevin Durant. They traded for Bradley Beal. We're going to have this crazy payroll. And like everybody else is afraid of the luxury tax. I'm not afraid. And those are always my favorite owners. Like Brooklyn got bought by this Russian guy, Prokhorov, in the early 2010s. And he's like, I'm going to spend, and just made all these crazy moves. And then 2 years later, he's like, I don't want to do this anymore, and then just stop spending money. And the Celtics had all their draft picks. So the whims of these guys that they see these teams as like these toys and these things to play with.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, all these, hundreds of thousands of fans are attached to the team.
Yeah.
And these guys can just run roughshod, which is what's happened with the Yankees now. It's owned by the owner, the dead owner's son. And he just won't fire anybody, and they're in chaos.
Well, it occurs to me that you can almost draw a parallel between that and maybe any business, but certainly our business, that you have these big sort of rich guys who either rich themselves or control these big corporations. They're driven by, whatever, stock price, et cetera. And there's no actual reverence for the thing itself, right? So the culturally, they don't really care about what impact. So they come in and they go, I'm going to buy this team. Hey, look, it's really bad for basketball or it's really bad for soccer. And they're like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to be dead in 15 years. I just want to win a couple of championships. I don't give a shit. And that's happening in entertainment. These guys came in, these people came in, they run it, and they're like potentially destroying it. And they're like, I don't give a shit. I just want to strip it down and sell the pieces off. And I don't give a fuck if it, fucks culturally with this, this thing.
Is this why Dr. Pimple Popper is on the lead cover of Max right now instead of Succession or Curb Your Enthusiasm?
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, do you think that the fan base, to your point about how all these hundreds of thousands of people are associated and attached to each team in the fan base, does the fan base really have any leverage? Like if an owner is just in a tailspin, can they strike effectively and say,
we just
we're
saw
not
it with the Washington football fans. They had this owner who was Daniel Snyder, who was like the worst owner. He was like the championship belt holder every year. And he sucked the life out of the franchise and the city to the point that, they would have a home game and they'd have more fans of the other team. And everybody was like, I'm out until this guy's gone.
And it really had no impact on him. It's the TV rights that really have the leverage.
And financially, they still sold for how many billion?
Yeah.
Right. Well, what happened was the sponsors started fleeing and it became, and then he had a couple other things.
But that's because of his behavior personally,
and
as
his
opposed
behavior
to
wasn't great.
Team performance.
But that's the thing. These guys, like the Phoenix Suns owner, had this whole toxic environment, and they made him sell. And then he sells for like a record price, So
or Sterling made a bunch of money at the Clippers, right?
Right. Sterling's the worst guy probably who's ever owned a team. And, he cashed out and made more money than anybody ever made.
By the way, my feeling on that, I've thought about it since that sale and that everything that went down, and then his family was trying to block him from selling it to Steve Ballmer back in the day, blah, blah, blah. And then they were claiming that he was sort of unfit to make the deal, Sterling himself and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it was all by design to drive the price up. Now, I'm a cynic, but I do think that was all by design, because the more that the family was fighting, they were saying the price just kept going up just to grab it.
Oh, no question. I've had Clippers season tickets for 20 years because I got them to go see the other teams. And but I got to know a lot of the people in my section. And Sterling would show up and he'd be dressed in all black and he'd sit courtside. And he was like the fucking Grim Reaper.
All right.
And he would go and this team had such a malaise. And then you have the Lakers on the other side that are like one of the jewels of the league. And it was like a fascinating sociology experiment to watch this fan base who basically their hope was either he's going to sell or they're going to stumble into some draft pick that will get them LeBron. But if neither of those things happen, I'm here to see the other teams. And that was kind of the vibe.
So, Bill, not to embarrass you, but you've done very, very well financially with all of your all of your efforts. Well, not like you,
Junior,
and we're trying. But you're crushing it. My question is, because you mentioned courtside seats. What's the thing that you could never afford that once you started really doing well, you treated yourself to? It doesn't have to be sports based. And
I can guess one thing, because you're living in Wayne Manor, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like a nice house you're in. But because you seem like you've really kept very close contact with your sort of simpler self, and I don't mean that as a pejorative, but you're a very normal guy, which is great.
Oh,
so
thanks, Jason.
How are you? Is it comfortable? You're a mogul, but you don't seem like one. You're wearing a t-shirt and you're just talking with us idiots. And so, how are you able to match all of your
dreams?
All your dreams with trying to stay grounded?
I've never, just on the courtside seats thing.
Yeah,
they're actually it's like a pretty bad seat. Have you ever?
But they're
Like
expensive.
if you're at a basketball game,
Yeah.
I'm always like amazed people spend that amount of money. I think it's really just to be kind of seen on the court.
Right.
But you're too close. Like the seats
you
I have for
can't
the
see.
Clipper games were like 4 or 5 rows up. Same for my dad's Celtic tickets that he's had for like 52 years. And there's perspective and you can actually watch it. The courtside thing,
Yeah.
Like sitting front row in a movie theater.
I always say that about hockey games. People who are like, I'm right down in the glass. I'm like, great, you got the worst seats in the house. You
Right.
can't see shit. You want to be, hockey, you want to be 10, 15 rows up.
See the space.
and
Right.
between the red lines.
or
Blue
right
lines, I mean.
right behind the goalie is cool because we
Right.
had those king seats for a couple years.
Oh,
and
that's cool
that's
too.
great.
Yeah.
that's
you're
where
right.
you're like, how is every goalie not just completely traumatized and in a mental hospital? When you see like what happens to them, their whole lives, it's just like they're getting just things fired at them. There's all this commotion in front of them. They're falling, they're jumping up, they're falling, and you're like, how is any of these guys
They are.
Healthy.
not in a straitjacket?
Bill, what do you do when you're not watching sports? What's your thing? This is sort of a Jason Bateman question. What's the thing? What's your
guilty pleasure?
Yeah, your guilty pleasure that you watch or you do or you read or something that's outside of the realm of what you do professionally?
Well, outside, because it's a lot of sports movies and TV. And I host this Rewatchables podcast where we do a podcast about a movie every week that people really like. And
Yes.
it's fun to
Oh,
like
that's
try
cool.
to figure out, is that Rewatchables worthy or not? And then if it is, I'll watch it twice. But
But is there something else that you do that's outside of that or no?
you mean just like my personal stuff?
Yeah, your personal
Well,
stuff.
I have 2 kids. A lot of kids sports. Both of my kids are athletes.
What do they play?
My son is football and lacrosse. My daughter is playing soccer actually in college right now. So
wow.
so I had there's a lot of sports parent stuff that kind of took over, and then still playing tennis and still a lot of like stuff with the friends. You find your little
Yeah.
friend group as you get older, and you do the
Yeah.
dinners, and then somebody gets mad at somebody, and you talk about it the next day. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, we can't believe we had you
I know.
longer
We can talk
than
to you
an hour.
forever. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
You're the man.
Yeah, you really are.
Thank you for doing this
Thanks,
again.
guys. I can't wait for you guys not to run this.
Yeah, we promise to air this one. Promise. And go Sox until the World Series, and
Yep.
then we'll let the Dodgers go
I agree.
by
Go
them.
Sox.
We won't be in the World Series. Don't
All
worry.
right.
I'll give you the Red Sox.
Celtics. You
And
can
Celtics, I
have.
don't care.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
And
right.
by the way, guys, it was cool to be on the test show and then watch how the podcast blossomed. I remember telling Bateman, I was like, "Do you guys want to do this at Spotify?" I was like, "No, I think we're gonna hold on to this. We kind of like just kind of being in control of it." And it turned out to be very smart.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
But we're certainly having.
We're
a
in
lot
the
of
bet
fun.
on ourselves
I
club.
know it's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Thank you for making the bed that we're enjoying
for sure,
resting
man.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep doing
All
it,
right,
man.
good to
You're
see
the
everybody.
best.
Thank you.
You too.
You too,
Take
pal.
care.
Thanks, Bill.
See you, man.
Bye, buddy. Well, that's a good man for coming
It
back.
is.
Yeah. It was so long ago, I didn't remember anything we talked about. So I'm glad.
It was well over 3 years ago that we first had him on. It was one of our first shows, and we asked him about the podcast business because we now, if you
Well,
can imagine,
Dax
knew
was
even
the first,
less.
though, right? Didn't
Yes,
we ask
Dax was
Dax?
the
Dax
first.
was the first episode, yeah.
Dax was first. But and then we got very topical at the time, and so it just didn't work. And Jason's kudos to you for bringing him back because he's such
Yeah, I
an
love that.
infinitely interesting guy.
Yeah,
I could
he
talk to
really
him forever about everything.
I
Yeah.
really admire that he's been able to just crush it in multiple areas, and
I know. How about you just
stay
bring
so grounded?
a topic up and he fucking knows about it. It's crazy.
Yeah. You don't want to get into an argument with him. He'll kill you
Yeah.
with facts.
Sure.
So who's
how's
thinking?
the buy work coming, Sean?
Yeah, Sean, how is the buy work coming?
Well,
'Cause
I
we can-
can't really
You're
do it
glazed.
because
I know you've been working
have
on it for probably 40 minutes.
You're wearing. Oh, you're not wearing your regular glasses. You're wearing your.
Bye.
Focals with the
Bye.
assist from Arnett.
Bye.
Enjoy your day.
SmartLess is 100% organic and artisanally handcrafted by Rob Armjarv, Bennett Barbaco, and Michael Grant Terry.
SmartLess.
Our next episode will be out in a week wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can listen to it right now early on Amazon Music, or early and ad-free by subscribing to Wondery Plus in Apple Podcasts or the Wondery app.
Every big moment starts with a big dream. But what happens when that big dream turns out to be a big flop? From Wondery and At Will Media, I'm Misha Brown, and this is The Big Flop. Every week, comedians join me to chronicle the biggest flubs, fails, and blunders of all time, like Quibi.
It's kind of like when you give yourself your own nickname and you try to like get other people to do it.
And the 2019 movie adaptation of Cats.
Like, if I'm watching the dancing and I'm noticing the feet aren't touching the ground, there's something wrong with the movie.
Find out what happens when massive hype turns into major fiasco. Enjoy The Big Flop on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to The Big Flop early and ad-free on Wondery Plus. Get started with your free trial at Wondery.com/plus.